Welcome to episode 84 from the Shed Ends with myself, T.Dot, Theo. First of all, happy birthday. Recording on your birthday. Dedication. How you doing?
Not bad, thanks. And slightly under the weather, a bit of a cold. I think that's brewing
The
at the
Dortmund,
moment.
the Dortmund flu has
The,
caught
the
up with you.
Dortmund the Dortmund variant has kind of
Dortmund
finally
variant.
caught up with me. But yeah, like you said, it's my birthday today, so a year older, a year wiser, like they say, and I'm turning 26. So from a Chelsea perspective, that's a lucky number. John Terry's lucky number 26. And there's nothing I'd rather do on my birthday than talk Chelsea and record a podcast. I feel like it's much needed on a Friday afternoon, like we love kind of discussing. So probably my highlight of the day so far, talking Chelsea on my birthday.
Hopefully gets better. This can't be the highlight of your day, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to catch up as we do every week. Everyone who's new to the channel, if you're new, make sure you go and subscribe. Make sure you hit that Linktree link in the description. It takes you to all our social accounts and all our podcast episodes as well. So make sure you do that before you leave this video. And yeah, let's get straight into it because there's a lot to talk about. We've got to go all the way back to last Sunday. I'm not talking about the Carabao Cup final. I'm talking about our abysmal performance against Spurs. We've had a really good record there since 2018, as I mentioned last week. We get to Tottenham and we allow them to basically play through us like we weren't there, non-existent, poor performance. I couldn't pick anyone out that team that I thought played well. But what was your thoughts going into that game? Obviously, we gave our predictions. We kind of was apprehensive in terms of goals. But what was your thoughts when you saw the lineups? I thought we played well. We started the game really well, but then we just fizzled out as per usual. But what was your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think I wasn't that optimistic going into the game. I think my prediction was a 1-1 draw. I said a draw, not a defeat, because simply given our record against Tottenham and the rivalry, I thought somehow the players would turn up. Like you said, I thought in spells we did play well. I thought we had a lot of the ball, but as always, we don't really know what to do with the ball. I think a couple just simple shots on target from João Felix that were quite comfortable for Fraser Forster. But other than that, there was nothing really troubling for Spurs, and they kind of would have really enjoyed that performance, and their fans would have really enjoyed it as well because Chelsea never really kind of looked like they were going to score. They were having all this ball, we were having all this possession, but we just weren't doing anything with it, which just seems to be the same old story that we've had in the last few months under Graham Potter. It's annoying, like you said. Like our record against Tottenham it's been so good lately. I think last defeat in the league against them was November 2018, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
and it was still at Wembley back then, I think. So yeah, very frustrating performance. But what annoys me even more is we lost Thiago Silva to an injury. I think it was Harry Kane landing quite awkwardly on his knee. And I think as soon as you lose Thiago Silva, you lost not only a world-class player, but you've also lost your leader on the pitch. We don't have Aspi. Obviously, he's still recovering from his head concussion. So it almost felt like we were just we didn't really know who to kind of take instructions from. We've spoken at length about Graham Potter on his podcast, being he's not maybe the right manager to just give you kind of some tactical instructions on the touchline like a Thomas Tuchel or Jose Mourinho would have done in the past. So it felt like we were just in that second half. We just didn't really know what to do. And we saw that they scored within, I think, 60 seconds of the restart of the second half, Oliver Skipp. And again, a bit clumsy communication defensively. It wasn't great. I think it was Kepa could have easily caught that. I mean, he was about to catch it, but then Enzo clears it. Two Spanish speakers, you'd think somehow they could just scream at each other to, say what they're going to do to but no, it didn't work. And then Koulibaly as well, it almost felt like he just died. He just jumped a bit too late to try to block that Oliver Skipp shot. So a very preventable goal, in my opinion. But it's just annoying. I think both of us weren't really in the mood to record stuff last of this week simply because it was Spurs. We were frustrated. I even had to take a break from using Twitter for a bit because it was just so toxic and frustrating to look at. But yeah, all in all, a very abysmal performance, like you said, and it just doesn't really give you much confidence going into games at the moment.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to pick out anyone who in that game for me was played well. I mean, I couldn't understand the formation at first. I felt like Hakim Ziyech when it was almost a hybrid, forward at the back, and we had the sort of wing backs, and it almost felt like Hakim Ziyech when we didn't have the ball was playing as a right wing back. Didn't suit him at all. didn't suit him at all. I'm still puzzled as to how Hakim Ziyech, who was a player that was clearly, out of Graham Potter's plans, he was allowed to talk to PSG. He was there. He almost signed for the club. He's still playing ahead of certain players, but and not to single him out, I don't think he wasn't the reason we lost or we didn't play well against Spurs. But I just think if he's not in the manager's plans, why is he in the team? If he wasn't in the manager's plans, is it just a case of keeping him fresh, keeping him in the shop window? I don't know, but even his altercation was weird. I mean, the refereeing, and not to blame it on the ref, I don't want to pinpoint it down to the ref, but the refereeing was poor, and it has been poor for a couple of weeks now, not just in Chelsea games, in other games as well. But the whole sort of I've got to give him a red card to be able to review it on the VAR. It's stupid. It delays the game. I don't think it was even a red card, if I'm honest. I think it was, there was. If you're gonna send off Hakim Ziyech, you may as well send off Emerson Royale. That whole altercation doesn't happen if Royale doesn't even run into him, doesn't push him, doesn't try and antagonize things. It was just a mess. It was just a melee of chaos, and I don't want to pinpoint that down to why we didn't win. We didn't win because we're playing, for me personally, you're playing Kai Havertz again, as I've said on here many times before. You're playing Kai Havertz as a striker. He's not a striker. We're 2-0 down. You're bringing on Aubameyang, Pierre-Emerick. Let's get it right this time. You're bringing him on. 10 minutes to go. We're 2-0 down. He's coming on against a team that you clearly know hates him from the bottom to the top. They hate him. He's ex-Arsenal. What's he supposed to do in 10 minutes? For me personally, I don't get it. And that's the bits where I'm struggling, where I see zero from the management, zero from the assistants on the bench. It was just a poor performance. And I think, like you said, when you lose someone like Thiago Silva, there isn't any leaders or no one to lead leadership on the pitch. And, we used to have John Terry. If we didn't have John Terry, we'd have Gary Cahill. If we didn't have him, we had someone else. And going even further back, Frank Lampard, you had Didier Drogba, you had Diego Costa. Big names, big players. We don't have any of that. We've got one or two good players. Enzo Fernandez didn't look his best against Spurs, but again, I'll ask you, is he being played in a role that suits him? I don't think he is, but what do you think about Enzo? Because I feel like we're not going to get the best out of Enzo until we're playing him slightly higher up the pitch, which I think he did slightly for Benfica as well on a couple of occasions, or more so. But it feels like he's currently playing as this almost a DM, which I don't think suits him. I think he needs to be higher up the pitch. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, 100% agree. I think we touched upon it on last week's podcast, is we need kind of to see him alongside an N'Golo Kante, so he has that freedom and to just, go up the pitch and offer his support to the more offensive players. And I think that's the best of Enzo Fernandez. And he is a player that likes to get on the edge of the box, have a shot on goal, assist the strikers or the wingers. And I felt like at the Spurs game, he was not able to do that. We go back to the Dortmund game away from home. He was the player that was left with the defensive responsibility to track back with Adeyemi when he scored his goal. And I'm sure when he was back at Benfica, there was someone else who could, play that sweeping role. So I think we haven't seen the best of Enzo Fernandez yet, but we've seen signs that are very promising. And I think, like we touched upon last week, once we see that midfield partnership alongside N'Golo Kante, I think that's when we're going to see the best of Enzo.
Yeah, and I think it's harsh to criticize any of the players that we've currently got in the squad at the moment that have come in fresh. I think it's hard to criticize any of them because, I know there's been a lot of talk about Mudryk, who clearly hasn't really been given. I don't think any of those players have been given a fair crack of the whip to be able to say if they're good enough or they're not good enough. I think it's just a case of, we need to give them time to embed. They need a whole pre-season to do what they can do. But it definitely brings Graham Potter under a lot more pressure than he was a week ago, 7 days ago. I think he's definitely under more pressure. What needs to change for him? I mean, we seem to talk about him. Obviously, he's the topic of conversation here a lot, but something's got to change. And is it a case of the fact that he doesn't know his best 11? He's come out recently and said, he finds it hard to train the players because of the large squad that he's got. I mean, it's just excuse after excuse, not just from Graham Potter, but from Chelsea fans now as well. But what's your thoughts on Graham Potter? What does he need to do? How long does he need before? Because it sounds like the owners are getting a bit pissed off. Let's be honest. I think the owners are looking at alternatives. But what does he need to do? What can he change? How does he get his best 11? What should he be doing? He's got his best 11. He's got a crop of players he can choose from, and we still don't. I mean, we're in March and we still don't know what Graham Potter's best 11 is. There's 2 months left of the season.
I think firstly we need to score goals. Graham Potter needs to get these players to score goals, because goals get you wins, and right now we're not getting goals, so we're not getting wins. I saw that we have the third best defensive record in the Premier League, behind I think Newcastle and Arsenal, if I'm not mistaken. But so clearly we're able to keep clean sheets in some of the games. We have conceded some poor goals lately, but most of the time we're losing games by thin margins. But goals is the problem. We're not getting goals. I mean, we've brought in we brought in João Felix, Mudryk, Enzo, all these players, but are they natural born goal scorers? I'm not sure they are. We don't have that clinical number 9, which we keep going on about, and I don't know if that's going to come in Nkuku in the summer. But in the meantime, just give Aubameyang a chance. I don't know if it's Todd Bowley is whispering in Potter's ear to isolate Aubameyang. He's a bit of a bad egg. We don't want him here. He'll be gone in the summer either way. So maybe Potter's already creating his vision for the future without Aubameyang. But he knows where the back of the net is. He's scored 20 odd goals in different seasons across the Premier League, and I think he needs to come back into the team and get some goals. And he's the type of player that one goal will give him the confidence to get another in the same game, I reckon. So I think, but that comes back to what you said. He doesn't know his best 11. He's experimenting with all these different 11s. We saw Datro Fofana come in against Southampton 2 weeks ago. Will we see Fofana again this season? There was talks of him going out on loan in January. It's a bit weird. You're saying, okay, he's going to go out on loan, but you're still playing him. Same with Andre Santos, the Brazilian midfielder. There were talks that Potter wanted to bring him back and have him in midfield for the rest of the season. But then he's also complaining that he's got too many players in training at the moment. So it feels a bit like, I don't know, like you're saying this, but you're also saying that you don't know which players you really want to work with. So there are a few things, in my opinion, that like Graham Potter needs to kind of work on. But I think the main one is finding his best 11 that can get him goals. And right now we haven't seen that under the Graham Potter era.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it's. I mean, look, we have to obviously caveat that with the fact that obviously players have been injured. He's bringing in a whole crop of new youngsters and talent. But I think the core spine of your team could easily be picked out from this bunch of players. I really do. I think he's. I'll be honest. I said to you, I said to you before, I can't trust his process, and that was months ago. That's probably 2 months, maybe even longer. I just can't trust it. There's nothing. I don't see anything from this manager that makes me think he is confident. And someone said something to me last week. I was ill when they said it, so it probably like resonated with me a lot worse than it needed to. But Graham Potter's on £1 million a month. That's more than Eric Ten Hag. That's more than any manager I know. £1 million a month.
6 years.
Yeah, I mean, when you break it down monthly, I mean, 12 million a year sounds okay. I mean, that's what you probably expect a manager to be getting. But when you break it down, £1 million a month, £1 million a month, that's mental money. That should be winning me the Premier League, the Champions League. I should not be thinking about my team, 10 points adrift from relegation. Now, that's a worrying thing for me. And I feel is that part of the fact that he's in this contract for so long, like you just said, 6-year deal. Is it that what keeps him very much comfortable? I mean, you see him walking around. I know we spoke about, the death threats and the threats that were given to it were aimed towards him, but taking that aside as well. Now, obviously, no one condones that, but taking that aside. Is this why he's so sort of he almost in his press conference, he makes jokes, he cracks jokes. He doesn't seem like a manager that's under stress, under pressure. when you hear him talk? Is that just maybe part of his persona that he's able to, I don't know, hide, mask the worry, the pressure? But if I was on £1 million a month and I'm a year into it, I probably would be like him as well. I probably wouldn't be too fussed because if I get sacked, I'm still getting paid. Is that maybe the mentality he's got? Why we're not seeing the results? Is that why these players are getting X amount of days off leave, and the training has been reduced down to as much as it has? Is it because the manager is financially set up for life? Really, when you think about it, I mean, he's set up. He doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to manage for the next 3 years if he really didn't want to. There's a
I,
lot of
don't-
questions that I have to wonder about, but
I hope that's not the case. I really hope not. Like, I hope money and is not a kind of a motivation to him if he was really committed to the club. And I do feel somehow the results lately, the kind of negative attention and media that he's been getting, has got into his head. He did say that it's affected his mental health and his family's mental health. So I do think somehow money isn't the main issue here. But like you did say, maybe he feels very secure that he's got a 6 year contract. And had it not been a 6 year contract, I think they would have already cut ties with Graham Potter a while ago. But I think that's maybe the only thing that's keeping him in the job at the moment. And maybe the promises he was told back in September that he'd be given at least 2 years to build his team and his vision. But now we're hearing mixed things about the Chelsea Leeds game and the Chelsea Dortmund game coming up in the next couple of days, because some people are saying this could be make or break for Graham Potter. And if he loses these games, then it's finished. And Todd Bowley would have seen enough for him to kind of sack him from a 6 year contract. Then other people are reporting that even if he loses these games, he's still safe, and they want to give him at least until the end of next year. So I think with manager sackings, you can never know for sure. Sometimes it happens instantly. I mean, I think no one could have predicted a Tuchel sacking, for instance.
that one
So
threw us
it
completely.
really did. Yeah, it really did. So I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe something, there's a twist in the tail or something with Graham Potter. It could be after he could maybe be promised that another season, but at the end of the year, the board sack him. But I think just from a fan's perspective, we've been told that these next two games are make or break. I think if we don't get the results it needs to, especially the Champions League one, which is almost like what our season's resting on at the moment, then I think it's no coming back for Graham Potter with the fans, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's worrying because I think the fans have already they cut their losses with Graham Potter. I don't think the fans are, or the majority of fans, I don't want to say everyone, but if you, like you said at the very start of this, you had to take a sort of a couple of days away from Twitter because it is a very toxic place to be at the moment. And I think there's a lot of fans that are calling for Graham Potter's head. And I'll be honest, I don't think the owners even had a plan B in terms of, do we need to, who is our short list of managers if Graham Potter needs to go? I don't think they had one because I don't think they probably thought at this point in the season or this point in Graham Potter's managerial career at Chelsea, they would need to sack him. I really don't think they've got a list of managers. They've probably had to get one drawn up now because of all the pressure and the social media scrutiny that's being given, and Todd Bowley's being tagged in this and that from all these other, some big YouTube accounts, which he's clearly already proven he listens to Twitter Spaces. He's quite active on social media. He listens to what people are saying. So they've probably drawn up a short list, but Hansi Flick, maybe Zidane, I don't think would work. Maurizio Pochettino, I think there's been reports that he's turned the job down recently. I don't think he would suit Chelsea, if I'm honest. So I think we just have to. I think we're stuck with him. I really do. I don't see any other manager unless someone gets sacked or Jurgen Klopp walks away from Liverpool. Something crazy like that happens. I just don't see us changing the manager. I really don't. I think we're in this. Whether we get relegated, whether we come out the Champions League and we don't get European football next season, I think we're just stuck with Graham Potter. I really do. I can't see the owners. Um, I mean, they should do. I think they should do, but I just don't see they're going to lose all that money. The money that they had to pay to get him out of his deal at Brighton, paying what they're paying him now to then have to pay him up, pay all his coaching staff, and there's a lot. I mean, we're talking about it because it's not our money, but when you're talking about hundreds of millions of pounds and hemorrhaging that money and just throwing it away, it's money. It's millions we're talking about. So I wanted to ask you a question actually, because someone mentioned this to me, that obviously there's been a lot of change upstairs as well. So we're talking about technical directors and everything else that's happened. Um, Do you think that's played a massive part? I do feel we've done it the wrong way, because someone asked me on another podcast that, should we have got all that sorted first in terms of a directors and getting the recruitment side of things and the hierarchy, then getting a manager in afterwards to work with those people. I feel like we did it the other way around. We got Graham Potter in, then we started building around Graham Potter. Should we have done it the other way around?
I think it would have made sense. I think the timeline of these kind of hirings has been a bit skewed, in my opinion. Like we hired Graham Potter back in September, early September, and I think we're still kind of hiring all these technical directors and people to this day now. So it feels like maybe those people that if we had hired them in the summer, they could maybe have played a part in maybe the process of getting the new manager. And I've been told that I think 6 top class managers' agents have, put their names forward to Chelsea. They've contacted Chelsea saying they're available. We don't know who they are, but apparently that's quite often now with managers that their agents contact clubs to let them know that they're available. But yeah, I think I think looking back, maybe hired all those guys in the summer, and then had them have a say in the Potter appointment before we made it official.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I think ideally you'd want it to be done. But it does worry me when I hear comments of the squad is too big and I can't train them. If that is coming from the head coach or the manager, and he's coming out and saying those things, that's worrying for me, because yeah, you've got a big squad, but you've got to be able you've got to deal with it. That's your squad. You've got, they're not going anywhere apart from, Santos, who's on loan now, but you've got a big squad. I look back to Chukwuemeka. I mean, when was the last time he played a game? A lot of these players, do they need to go back and play some football for the development team a bit more? Lewis Hall, he hasn't really featured recently. So do we need to put them back in the development squad and just allow Graham Potter maybe just to trim the squad down in that way, and just let some of these players go back into that dev squad, build up a bit of football, and allow him to concentrate on the core team, the team that he wants to be playing week in, week out, and let him focus on that. Because using the squad as an excuse now is to me is the last straw. You're clutching at stuff here now. It's not. I don't want to hear my manager say that he can't cope with the squad. That is not. That worried me, and I was, like I said, I was ill. So everything I was reading like the last couple of days has like hit me totally different to how I would be if I was like just normal. Training squad's too big. I mean, you've got coaches.
It's a weird one. Yeah, I think he even said like he feels bad because he has to leave some players on the side while the others do the drills, so like 11 versus 11. And I was having a chat in the office with one of my colleagues the other day, and we're talking about this. That Potter was saying, his squad is too big, and he doesn't know his best 11 and this. He did a sarcastic like boohoo kind of crying face, and it's almost like, why are you complaining? You've got arguably 30 amazing players they can work with. It almost feels like a good kind of dilemma to have. I mean, I can get his point of saying now that we have almost a fully fit squad with Pulisic and Kante coming back from their injuries. Some players will miss out on the bench on match day, which may make them a bit unhappy. I think Chalobah wasn't on the bench against Spurs or Southampton. Yeah. So I think there's decisions to be made with the match day squads. But in terms of the training, it's not like we've got a tiny little pitch in the field. We've got Cobham, it's an amazing facility. Multiple pitches. We've got multiple coaches as well that can work with different groups of players. I think, I don't know, it seems a bit weird. It almost feels like he's coming up with the excuses now, Mourinho style.
Oh, yeah. He's learned from the best. That's the only thing he has taken from the best, to be fair. He's broken every other record from every other manager. But yeah, he's got a lot to do over the next 2 games. But let's keep it on sort of Cobham, technically, structure. Redevelopment of Stamford Bridge, because that has been a topic of discussion for many, many years. I think we spoke about it recently on here, actually, on one of the episodes. But there's now more talk around potentially just completely knocking down Stamford Bridge, rebuilding Stamford Bridge. I did read 55,000 capacity. Surely that can't be right. You're not going to knock down Stamford Bridge for an extra couple of thousand. But surely that has to happen now. In terms of keeping up with the big boys, and by that I mean the Spurs. Is when I say big boys, I'm talking infrastructure, not trophies. But in terms of Spurs, they got a brilliant stadium. They're set up really well. Even the Emirates is really good now. The Etihad, I think, is again under planning approval they're going through more approval to increase their capacity. You look at even Everton. I mean, I know they're not a massive stadium they're building, but they're building a new one. Anfield, United will
Fulham,
get a Fulham
Fulham,
as well
they're
now.
building
Yeah,
that new Riverside stand, I believe.
yeah. So I mean, when I say competing, I'm talking in terms of capacity and bringing in more revenue as well. We spoke about the virtual waiting room on here not long ago. Um, Trying to get tickets, that would be a problem solver to an extent. Surely more tickets being available means more people get an opportunity to go to the games. But what's your thoughts on the redevelopment of Stamford Bridge?
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Obviously, I'd love to see Chelsea play in a luxurious 60,000 capacity stadium. But like I keep saying on this podcast, I was born just around a corner from Stamford Bridge, and it will be an emotional day when I see it get knocked down. I mean, I'm looking at it there in your background, and it just feels like, I don't know, I'm going to have to bring some kind of memorabilia if it's the seat or something the day they knock it down, because I know a lot of West Ham and Spurs fans did that when they moved grounds. But like you said, it's needed. I feel like we've outgrown Stamford Bridge now. The facilities feel a bit outdated at times at Stamford Bridge compared to the Spurs Stadium and all that kind of the food courts that go around it. Tickets as well. If it means we can sell more tickets and more people can have access to games, then which means revenue as well. I'm sure Todd Bowley would love that. There will be obviously the year or two in between the rebuild where we'll probably have to move to a Wembley, Twickenham, Craven Cottage. I think I saw those were 3 names of stadiums that we're thinking of moving to. And it's going to be a lot of Chelsea fans maybe that might not be as tempted to go to games. I know, for instance, my dad, as much as he loves Chelsea, he said, I'm not going to go to Wembley every weekend. He said it. Well, I'm on the opposite. I'll go for every game. But but yeah, I think it's definitely needed. I think there was talks of this, I think, around 2015 with Abramovich, but then I think he didn't get the planning permission. But now it seems like Todd Bowley wants to buy, or Chelsea Football Club want to buy a bit more land around between the Stamford Bridge and Fulham Broadway to maybe expand it towards there. So if everything goes right and we get the planning permission and we're able to buy that land, I think it's exciting times. I think we're getting this kind of new squad now where we're seeing all these players complement the Cobham facilities and the training routines and the facilities that are available to them there. I feel like the next step now is a new stadium. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm already excited to see maybe some kind of visuals of what it may look like.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think it's been a long time coming. Like you said, I remember the Battersea Power Station idea and all of those things. And I think even there was talk then when Abramovich was looking at ideas to, again, knock down Stamford Bridge, rebuild. So yeah, I'm all for it. And I think it's been a long time coming. It would be a sad day, 100%, because it's, even Chelsea visually looking different to me would be just weird. I know, obviously, I'm used to when they didn't have the roof on the main stand as well, but it's just it's just be weird. It's so weird. But it's got to be done. I think one side of football is results on the pitch, but the other side is the business side, and I think to keep up with the other teams, you've got to increase the capacity. We're probably, in terms of top 6 clubs, we're probably one of the lowest in terms of capacity. Surely we have to be. Spurs, City, United must be above us. So I just think I think it's got to be done. 100% has to be done. So I'm looking forward to that. Be a shame though, because they've
Wait,
only just done. I'm sure they've only just done Westview. Westview's only
yeah,
just been done
yeah.
recently.
But then I think it's a question of, if it does happen, would it be this summer? Would it be the next one? I can't see it being this summer if it is the case.
I reckon it'll be even longer. I don't know if the
Yeah,
planning permissions have been gone through or anything. I think they're at that stage where they're just trying to get approval. I think there'll be loads of governance around it, trying to get people to sign things off and all that. So, and then just thinking back to, like, Everton, the Bramley-Moore Docks, I think their stadium's taken years, and they've still got 2 years to go till they're in there. They're not in it for another 2 seasons. So, um, I
I
think it'll
was
be a
going to
long
ask.
way off.
Yeah, I was going to ask, if we were to move to a new stadium for 1 or 2 seasons, which one would you prefer? Craven Cottage, Twickenham, or Wembley?
I mean, Wembley's easier to get to than all of them, to be fair. Well, Fulham, Craven Cottage is easier. But
For me, it would be.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just don't know. I've never really liked Wembley being used as a. I didn't like Tottenham being in there. and I just think it should be used. I think Wembley should be only used for the finals. The fact that it used to get used for semi-finals and things, I've been dead against that. You should always only get to Wembley. Wembley should be a one-off thing, not like going there every week. So Twickenham wouldn't be bad, but I don't know how that would work with the rugby season, and I'm not a rugby guy, so I don't know how that would work. Would it clash with rugby season and Six Nations and all that? I wouldn't know. So, but Twickenham's not. I'd love to go. I've always wanted to go to Twickenham, so it's one reason to get there, I suppose. So I'm going to say Twickenham or Fulham. So let's go Craven Cottage or Twickenham.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think Craven Cottage, because it's 10, 15 minutes on the bus from mine. Twickenham, because it's still kind of considered West London, I suppose. And you wouldn't be sharing it with any other team, and it almost feel a bit unique to us, other than the rugby games that are played there. Wembley, like you said, I find it weird seeing Spurs play Premier League games there. It didn't really sit
Yeah,
right with
I
me.
didn't like it.
No, so I think keep that for the cup finals and the international games. But having Chelsea play there, it would kind of ruin that kind of element of getting there. You know, going to Wembley always feels so special because you earned your kind of trip to Wembley or your match at Wembley. But you know, just playing a Crystal Palace in a weekend in October doesn't really
Yeah,
feel right.
imagine doing that every week. It would take away the fun when you actually get to a final. You just wouldn't get that buzz that you'd probably get from doing it on a final day. So it's yeah, let's go with Craven Cottage or Twickenham. But let's talk about injuries, returning injuries. We might get some updates in the next half an hour or so as we're recording this. But Christian Pulisic and N'Golo Kante have been training now for say just over a week or so, maybe a bit longer. Good news to an extent. It is good and bad news, I think, because good, they're back in training, but well, Kante, you would think slots straight back into the team, but Pulisic, I mean, he could be down the pecking order in terms of getting any game time anytime soon. So we're gonna get into our Leeds preview soon, but what's your thoughts on that? I mean, where does Christian Pulisic fit into this new lineup, attacking wise going forward?
You know, all fairness, you look at the last few games, Hakim Ziyech starting. I feel like you could easily start Christian Pulisic over Hakim Ziyech, in my opinion. I do agree. I feel like no player has really stole the show since Pulisic has been injured. So I don't think it's too worrying for him. But you do wonder, that probably means another player that needs to be dropped off the bench now to kind of free a spot for Christian Pulisic. Raheem Sterling as well as another player that can play on the wing. So it'll be interesting to see which player kind of is replaced by Christian Pulisic. But that being said, and what we were saying before, Graham Potter doesn't have a preferred 11. He'll always probably
Yeah.
be mixing and matching. He'll probably play Pulisic against Leicester in a few weeks, but then play Sterling on this week and Ziyech the following week. I wouldn't be surprised if he just switches things up every week, but I still think I'd rather see a Pulisic than a Hakim Ziyech, based on kind of who could provide a bit more flair and goals. I think before his injury against Man City at the start of the season, at the start of the new year, he looked quite good in that game, I remember. And he is a player that can kind of get himself into good positions, but he does sometimes lack that kind of end finish, or a bit inconsistent at times, injury prone as well. But yeah, I think, like you said, Kante will slot right back in if he can stay fit. But Pulisic is a bit more of a debatable one with who he replaces in the team.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And I do like Christian Pulisic. I just think all these new signings. You know, you look at Mudryk, who you would expect when he hits the ground running. If he hits the ground running next season, I would expect him to be first choice on that left side. Um, maybe, maybe you put Raheem Sterling on the right or Madweki on the right as well. But then obviously João Felix, you got Mason Mount. Just so many players that can play, you know, swap around in those roles. It's a good headache to have, but I just think this is where we go back to what Graham Potter was saying about the size of the squad. Someone might have to leave in the summer again. You know, someone might have to move on, and we know Hakim Ziyech will be potentially one of them, but Christian Pulisic might be one of. I feel like he might be on that list of players that might need to go, unfortunately. But um, he's a good player. I mean, he's good when he's on his day. He just doesn't do it enough. He's not consistent enough for me. That comes back down to injuries. Comes back down to not being in and out of the team, like you said. So it's just a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both. So unfortunate for him. But let's go on to our preview. Let's talk about segueing straight into Leeds tomorrow. As we've been recording, and I'm going to read this out. I've just read that I've just read something actually. It was quite interesting. So the last time Chelsea lost four in a row without scoring was March 1929.
There's been a world war since then.
So that tells you everything about this game tomorrow. If we don't score and we don't win, we're record breaking again for all the wrong reasons.
Jeez.
1929. So if anyone actually wanted to know how bad our season's going, there you go. So with that being said, let's get into our match preview. What do you think about tomorrow? I mean, I'm sick of saying it's a must win, but it's one of those games that would have massive question marks over Graham Potter's future. I think if he loses this, and then obviously, like you said, going on to that Champions League game. But Leeds is a difficult game, home or away. It's a difficult game. But what's your thoughts on the performance that we need to see?
I'm not going to be honest. I don't think these games are must-wins anymore. They're must-wins for Graham Potter if he wants to keep his job, but they're not must-wins for Chelsea because, let's be honest, we're not going to get top four. We're not going to get, I don't even think we'll get Europa League at this rate. We'll be lucky to get Conference League, and I think as Chelsea fans, none of us want to see us in the Conference League. I'd rather not be in the Conference League than play in that tournament. But of course, just for bragging rights, and we know there's a big of a rivalry with Leeds since that FA Cup final replay, I think it was. I'm not optimistic anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if we draw or lose it to 0-0 or we lose 1-0 like we did against Southampton. Leeds aren't really that. I don't think they've been performing that well. They lost to Fulham midweek 2-0. They've got their new manager now, Javi Garcia, who used to manage, I think, Valencia, and he's got experience with Watford in the Premier League. So you don't know if they're going to have that new manager bounce or if they're, on the contrary, they might just not perform as well as when they were playing with Jesse March and before that Marco Bielsa. But I think we've got a good record against Leeds in the Premier League. We've beaten them in the last two seasons, I believe. I think it was those two Jorginho Peds last year when we beat them 3-2. Yeah. And the season before that was 3-1 and Pulisic, Giroud. I think it might have been Zuma who got the third. Don't quote me on that.
It was.
But it was Zuma. Nice.
Yep.
But yeah, I think I mentioned those two games. We scored 3 goals in both of those games. That's not happening. That's not happening tomorrow. We'll be lucky to score 1 goal. So I think the most important thing we need to see tomorrow is some goals. I don't want to all this thing like, but we played well, we had a lot of chances, but we didn't score. We need to, feel the lineup that can get us goals and have the confidence going into game to get us goals. So yeah, I'll quickly run through my lineup, which is on screen now. I've gone for a back 3. I think I was screaming out for this against Spurs. I thought it was needed. I know we've just lost Silva, who's probably our best centre-back, but I still think there's room to field 3 very good centre-backs in Fofana, Koulibaly and Badiashile. Not too sure why Badiashile didn't play a part against Tottenham, if I'm honest. But wing-backs are going with Reece James and Lewis Hall. We've got to remember we've got Dortmund midweek. Ben Chilwell is one of those players that you can't play him every single game, maybe at the moment. And I think Lewis Hall, the times he has played wing-back this season, he's been a threat. He has been a threat. Remembering that game against City and Fulham, he was actually having these big chances, probably our best chances we've had all year in a way. It just lacked a bit of confidence in front of goal. So I think it's a good chance to bring Lewis Hall back in the game. And if it's not Lewis Hall, let it be Ben Chilwell, but I don't want to see Marco Corella, if I'm honest. Midfield 2 of Fernandes and Kovacic. Again, we haven't seen the best of Kovacic this season at all. He was ill, didn't play a part against Tottenham last weekend, but I think if Kovacic plays well, I think this is a good game for him. And front 3, Mudryk, Aubameyang, Felix. Aubameyang, for me, he's got to start. He's got to start. I mean, I'm fed up of seeing Havertz and criticising him after games, but he's not a number 9, and he's been poor this season. He's been really poor. So start Aubameyang. It can't be much worse than Kai Havertz. And then the wingers, for me, I'd go with Felix and Mudryk. I think Mudryk will have that pace, and Felix, he hasn't been as good as maybe he was against Fulham and West Ham lately, but he does shoot. He does get you chances. He is good with his feet getting past players, so it's got to be that front 3 for me. Yeah, and regarding Kante, I was going to say have him on the bench and give him at least maybe 15-20 minutes if he is fit to play a part.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think he's got to feature at some point, because you'd expect him to start building up his minutes and you know, finishing strong, hopefully for the last part of the season. But I agree. I think it's a good lineup. You know, when you told me last night, I was like, yeah, I can see I can see it. I could see him going for that, Graham Potter. I was trying to think the last game that Lewis Hall played in. I feel like he played, because I know he played in midfield in the last game, and I feel like it was against Man City. But I might be wrong. It was a big team that we played against, and he had a torrid game. But it was a game I expected him not to do well in. I can't remember what game it was, and he hasn't played since, I don't think. But it would be a good game to return him into, bring him back into the fold. Um, Massive for our defense tomorrow. Massive. I think Fofana has to have the game of his life in the Chelsea shirt. Koulibaly has to be the most experienced. He has to take the Thiago Silva role on. Unfortunately, he has to. He has to be he's the most experienced out of that three, and he's got to. I mean, Badiashile, whenever he's played, he looks so calm, comfortable on the ball. But if we do go for a back three, obviously you're expecting Lewis Hall to bomb forward a lot more. You're expecting Reece James to do the same. You know, Fofana and Badiashile, Koulibaly have to be on the same page. If one of them isn't, you know, Leeds are a team that will get you on the bounce, on the counter, and they have to be ready for it. So Koulibaly has to do the Thiago Silva role tomorrow if this is the lineup. And going forward, I think, you know, Felix, Aubameyang, Mudryk, I agree with you 100%. I think they have to be the starters for tomorrow. I have gone slightly different to you. I should have showed you mine yesterday. I'll get mine up now. And yeah, I think for me, I've done something that I've gone totally against what I said I would ever do, and I've actually gone to a back four. So no, the reason I've gone for a back four is because I think you need to play that back three. It's dangerous without Thiago Silva. I feel like, was this not the game where Conor Gallagher, the reverse picture where he got sent off quite early? I feel like it was. Maybe it was another game, but
I think it was Gallagher got sent off against Leicester at home, and it was
was
Koulibaly
it
who got two
Leicester?
yellows.
Oh,
Koulibaly got
right.
the two yellows away to
In the Leeds
Leeds.
game, yeah,
Clumsy
wasn't it?
yellows, yeah.
Yeah, which there we go. I'm glad you used that word clumsy, because that's exactly what he does sometimes. When he hasn't got Thiago Silva next to him, he can be quite error prone. And so I've gone for a back four of I have played Ben Chilwell. I think he still needs to get those minutes in. So I've gone for James Chilwell as my left back, right back, Badiashile, Fofana as my centre backs, Kepa in goal. I've gone for Loftus Cheek in midfield with Kovacic, and I've pushed Fernandez slightly higher up the pitch, more central, to give him a bit more freedom to go forward and to support Mudryk, to support João Felix, and Aubameyang as well going forward. I think it has to be. I think Graham Potter just has to use the squad that he's got, and I think if we had Thiago Silva, I'd definitely play three at the back. But with Koulibaly, you just don't know which Koulibaly's turning up, and if it's going to be the one that's looking to get 2 yellow cards, then sit this one out, because we need 3 points. Let's be honest, regardless of if we want to keep the manager, or we're trying to back the manager. The manager needs 3 points, like you said. You know, I think it'd be good to see Fernandez in a more comfortable position for him. I feel like he's been played too deep and we're not seeing the best of him. Let's get him forward and see what he can do. And Aubameyang, like you said, has to start this game. If he doesn't start, I personally will hand deliver Graham Potter's P45, because it's ridiculous. He should be starting the game. He's got to go after this. If we don't win this one, like I've just read that stat out, 1929, we've not scored and we haven't won the game by 5:30 on Saturday. I'll have lost all patience with Graham Potter. There'll be nothing else to salvage for me, because we're not going to beat Dortmund. Let's be honest. So that's my lineup. Big question for you though before we wrap up. Mason Mount, who clearly we don't really speak about on here anymore, because I feel like we bashed him a bit, or I say me bashed him a bit more than I needed to. But I mean, when he's come on, he hasn't really been effective. But I do feel that there's going to be a time where Graham Potter will just introduce him back into the squad. I think the last maybe 2, maybe 3 games he started off the bench. I feel there's going to be a point, and it could be tomorrow, where he just brings him back into the lineup and says, "Look, you've had your time at the limelight. Now's your time to prove people why you should be in the team, why you deserve this contract." Do you reckon he might get a nod tomorrow?
It's a big game for Graham Potter, so I think Potter would want to pick his most informed team, and whether Mason Mount fits into that, I'm not sure. But yeah, like the small cameos he had against West Ham, I think Southampton, and even Tottenham, just hasn't really done much. He doesn't really look like the same Mason Mount that used to, that got back-to-back player of the seasons. And he feels like he's playing for that, he's trying to play for that contract at the moment, but we're not seeing anything that shows that he deserves this big contract of, I don't know, I think it's 300,000 a week or 250,000 a week that he wants. Um, and he's getting interest from a lot of other clubs, the likes of United, Liverpool, City. I think are all keen to sign him. Kovacic, another one that City seem really keen, and Pep seems really keen on signing. But two players
Yeah.
for me that just don't really look like they want to be at Chelsea at the moment, which is
Mm.
a shame, especially with Mason Mount, who's a Cobham boy and he looked so happy when he was playing the last few seasons, and he looked really invested into the club and his teammates around him. It just feels like a different Mason Mount this season. But no, I wouldn't start him tomorrow. I still think he needs a bit more time out of the limelight and really, I say like an easy game for him to kind of be reintroduced in and maybe get some kind of good performance. But there's no easy games for us at the moment.
Just
There's
gonna
no,
say like Southampton.
yeah, yeah, that would have been an easy one for me, and we clearly underestimated them. So yeah, I think he still needs a bit of a break, and I really hope at some point it's just something clicks or something turns around. And I think as all Chelsea fans, sure we bashed him, but we want him to do well. The same with Graham Potter, we want them to do well, especially Mason Mount. He's a player that we've grown to absolutely love, but I think it's more frustration at the moment because he's not doing well. But yeah, I think I still stick with my starting 11 that I shared before.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The only thing I'll say about Mason Mount is look at Marcus Rashford, who 12 months ago
Very
was
true.
down and
Yeah.
out. He looked like he was leaving the club. The fans were against him, and now he's being tipped as one of the best players in Europe at the moment. So yeah, form dips, but I think he's still, if he can pull out a good 3-4 months for Chelsea, I think Mason Mount stays. And I think the fans will get back on board with him. And I think he's just got to get his head down in the summer and just do what Marcus Rashford done and just start performing better. Um, so I think there's a player on there. I think it would be crazy to send him to Liverpool, which I think is the destination. If he does leave Chelsea, it will be for Liverpool. So before we wrap up, as usual, let's do our predictions for tomorrow's game. Um, I'll let you go first, obviously, as always, but more so because it's your birthday as well.
Well, I'm hoping for a birthday win tomorrow, but I'm not sure it's going to be one. I'm going to go 1-0 Leeds, simply just, and I think
Ooh.
we're gonna break that 1928 record for all the wrong reasons.
I'd have to agree. I think I don't see us winning. No, well, I'm going to say it again. I think I said it last week. If Aubameyang starts, we do have a chance. So I'll go 1-1 if Aubameyang starts. But if we don't, I think it's going to be another. I think it could be another 3-0. I'm going to say 3-0 to Leeds.
Jeez.
I think it'd be that bad. I think Thiago Silva missing the glue at the back of the team. You're talking about Badiashile, respectfully, who's just coming to the team. Big game for him to come into without Thiago Silva next to him, and the same for Wesley Fofana coming from a big injury as well. Like I said, Koulibaly's got a massive job on his hands if we do go three at the back. But I'm going to go 3-0 Leeds, unfortunately.
Surely that would be curtains for Potter. 3-0
I
at
don't
home
think it
to
will.
Leeds.
£1 million a month, 5 years. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think we're in it for I said on a video once, let's strap in and buckle in as Chelsea fans, and we are truly strapped in for this ride because it's going to be up and down, and this is a down at the moment. So I think he's not going anywhere. I think he stays. I'd be surprised if the owners sack him before the end of the month, but I'm hoping I'm wrong. But Theo, as always, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure on our Fridays. Our podcast on the Fridays, always the pleasure. Like you said, you did say it was one of the pleasures of the day, and I kind of agree with you now. Actually, it is one of the pleasures of the day. It kickstarts the weekend,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's always good to do that.
Especially when I'm feeling a bit run down. I'm not going to get my pint tonight. I feel if I'm feeling a bit lethargic like this. So this has definitely been my highlight so far.
Yeah, definitely 100%. And let's hope for 3 points as well, and let's hope we can get out the weekends with 3 points and our heads are held high. Anyone who's listening, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the Linktree link in the description as well. That'll take you to all our social accounts, podcast episodes. Make sure you give the video a like as well. I see a lot of people viewing the video, but they don't necessarily give it a thumbs up. So make sure you do that as well for us and get the algorithm up and running, and let us make some more viewers see the videos. Thank you very much for watching. This has been episode 84 from the Shed End. Until next week, we'll be back with another episode. Thanks for listening.